Welcome your 2:30 tee time. Leader card. First on the tee out of Ozark, Missouri, representing Team Full Turn, Andrew Presnell.
And Andrew is on the right side, very straight shot that had a little hyzer to finish.
Second on the tee out of Austin, Texas, representing Team Discmania, Nate Perkins.
Nate Perkins going up the center of the fairway, a little bit low, but again, center fairway, staying away from the OB.
Third on the tee out of Fair Oaks, California, representing Team Dynamic, Drew Gibson.
Long thrower, Drew Gibson, third here on the tee. Drew starts off with more anhyzer. He's looking for that to hook up and get to the left. Hits the tree and stops center fairway.
And rounding out your lead card out of Johnson City, Tennessee, representing Team Prodigy, Chris Dickerson. All right, Chris.
Dickerson plays it out even wider than we saw from Gibson. That is carrying to the right. We'll see if that finishes. Steve edited the women's footage from earlier today. Let's take a look now how they did on hole number 1.
Welcome to round 2 of the
Nate Perkins first to approach. He's got a mid in his hands. A little bit of a wind lift. He's short and left of the pin. And Andrew's shot is solid approach shot by Drew Gibson. Every once in a while we'll see what we can do to check in with them as they're competing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. From one knee, looks to be a good shot there by Chris Dickerson just outside. Great opening putt there by Andrew Presnell. And he's done just that. 4 birdies here on hole 1. We'll be back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. Andrew Presnell first to tee. That looked like it was maybe heading toward the OB on the left side. However, he gets the green paddle. We'll explain those a little later. However, James Conrad, I mentioned earlier, off to the great start. He is 4 down through 3 holes. At that pace, he's going to finish under par. Perkins finds himself on the right side. Looks like we're also having Steve Dodge joining us here again. Steve will be able to provide some colorful insight and information that we find on UDisc Live. Steve, welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Terry. Just finishing uploading the women's footage. Took a little bit extra time today. Made sure to check audio levels, so hopefully that'll be good. So far, 3 nice drives here on hole 1. And one thing I saw from Chris Dickerson was how solid his putt was on hole 1. Hopefully he's got that dialed in. Keep making a run.
And this is a crush, just trying to get up to the edge. He's done just that. We'll be back in a moment after we see how the women perform. Andrew, who has very good position going at the basket, just up and over. And in a very calm wind, Drew throws, but has to get up on his little toes there to see if he's in bounds. He gets the green paddle. Very smooth forehand by Perkins. Right now we are. It would certainly be impressive to see 8 birdies in 8 opportunities. It looks like all 4 of our players have put themselves in that position. And low. And he will walk away with the par, although Perkins will card the birdie.
I will say that I look forward to the discussion of videotape usage as the sport progresses, at least in the top level events like this.
And Dickerson will be in for birdie, so we're going to see 6 birdies out of 8 opportunities. I think that's 75%. If I do some quick math. Andrew's in. We'll see you guys in a moment from hole number 3. A great looking shot coming in by Nate Perkins. He gets the green paddle. He finds himself inbounds. There is little to no wind, at least on the top of this hill. It may be different down near the bottom of the hill, but it looks relatively calm throughout. And Dickerson's is looking to hook up, fade a little bit left. We're seeing, according to the stats on UDisc, this hole plays almost perfectly. 25% birdies, 25% above par, and 50% at par. And tracking right toward the basket, but up and past. Great looking shot by Andrew. And what looks to be a slower disc, maybe a mid-range of sorts, coming in by safe by Drew Gibson. Let's see how the women did on hole 3. And Steve, I mentioned on the tee that we felt very little wind. Solid putt. Andrew picks up the birdie. And he converts, as we saw Andrew. And we'll leave both Dickerson and Gibson at best with pars here. Dickerson less than 15 feet.
Nate has opened the tournament with a turkey. What is a 4-bagger?
Home run?
Okay.
I'm sure our Smashies can come up with a clever term for 4 birdies in a row. The quad? I don't know.
It already exists.
I'm sure it does. But these people are a lot smarter than us. Drew's going to tap in from just a few feet. We have a brief walk over to hole 4. We'll be back in a moment. And although Steve just referenced this to me as somewhat of a soft par 4 playing at 3.47, we see Nate Perkins with a very conservative forehand off the tee. Again, this is really all about angle. When you come in with your drive, you want to make sure that it doesn't catch an edge and find itself rolling left into the pond. For most of our players, though, this should be a relatively easy 3. And that's going to need to sit down and catches an edge, but has plenty of room. I'd like to see someone with the arm and distance, such as Drew or Chris, actually kind of give this a run, see if they can get there in 2.
I'm under the impression that Drew did get to the pin and potentially did get the 2 yesterday. Perhaps some of your Smashies could look that up for us and let us know.
As I said yesterday, this is a very picturesque disc golf hole. We're getting a full Anheuser to Heiser flight out of that. Gorgeous turn there by Chris Dickerson. And Gibson, in fact, did take the Eagle 2 yesterday. Gibson going with a roller with a headwind. Steve, is that going to work?
That is a very bad color disc. It is inbounds.
All right, we'll see how the women attacked. Steve, I'm looking at the sign next to the lake here, and it says lake is closed. I'm guessing a few of our...
Is accurate this time. And Nate Perkins looked like he had a beautiful shot. He should be well within circle 1, having a good run at birdie. And Andrew Presnell comes up a little bit short.
But I would definitely try to hang it to the right. You do not want to miss left here on an approach. And from one knee to within 15 feet, we have Drew Gibson, of course. And Dickerson, who by far had the best drive in the group, finds himself today as things have started off. And Andrew with a missed opportunity there. He's off the top of the basket at the elevated green here. Gibson converts for the birdie. We'd like to thank Tempercraft for joining the Disc Golf Pro Tour as a supporting partner. Dickerson is in, and an easy birdie there by Nate Perkins. We'll be back in a moment after a word from Tempercraft. You're seeing players being forced to the left side of this initial clump of trees. There's a mandatory, which means they must go left. If you see the in of a banner, anything left of those trees is the fairway in which they need to navigate through. And like yesterday, we see a roller here by Chris Dickerson.
Nice drive.
I think we'll see the same by Drew Gibson. And you see a different approach. Although still a roller, he goes much wider. Takes longer before it hits the ground. And a green paddle there by Drew Gibson. Andrew Presnell, fourth to tee here. Let's see how the wind.
And he did not catch a break that time, as that skips into the creek. He'll have a putt for 4.
And a layup it. And he gets it onto the green right next to the basket. That's a near drop birdie. And Nate will. And Drew gives his birdie attempt. And that is a great putt. Steve, that just talks about the... And speaking of presents, we'd like to send a huge shout out to the Cool One, who is a regular Smashy. He says he's watching it at the gym on Chromecast. Thanks for putting it on for all to watch. Chris Dickerson is in, and Nate Perkins is just left to clean up again. He'll remain at 9 under par, still with the lead here after the 5th hole of the 2nd round. We'll be back to you after a word from our sponsors on hole number 6. Chris going for what appears to be a cut roller of sorts. This hole measuring in at 437 feet. And Steve, I'm quite shocked it's actually playing over par.
It is playing over par. It's a par 3, so it's a really hard par 3. There's clearly a left to right wind up there, because that just should have cut right, cut left, and it decided to stand up a little bit.
Gibson also going with the roller. This hole is blind to the players from the tee shot. And that appears to be pin high just inside circle 2. Continues to fade left to right from a wind push. Let's see how the women did on hole 6. Great forehand there by Nate Perkins with the score that he posted yesterday to put himself in a tie for the lead after round 1.
A great run by Andrew. I have a funny feeling he's going to put himself in really solid position.
Dickerson from near 100 feet away. He'll put himself to within 15. And no medal. He's going to lay down and take a nap. I'd be disappointed without drawing medal from there either.
Oh, yeah, it's a gimme every time. 65 feet, you got to draw a medal. That's a good point, not the Southern Hemisphere. Chris Dickerson taps in for his par. So right now, Paul Macbeth has the hot round so far. He's 6 down through 11 holes. He's moved up 10 spots. He sits in 6th. James Conrad is 5 down through 7 holes. He's only moved up 2 spots, but he started in 5th, so that's not bad. He's sitting in 3rd. And another player doing very well so far, Paul Ulibarri, with 1 bogey and 6 birdies. 5 down. He's moved up 6 spots. So a lot of action here.
Well, the weather has been a drastic improvement from yesterday. Drew leaves in. That's a bold move. We're moving on to hole 7.
That is a huge shot. We're going to have to see where that ends up. It might be hyzering out. Drew Gibson does not believe it. Chris Dickerson currently sitting in 2nd, 8 down to Nate Perkins, who is on the tee. He's 4 down through the round, 9 down overall. My guess is he's taking a more traditional route through that thin gap to the dogleg to the right. You want to get it through that gap and then to the right as far as you can to have any look at birdie 3. That is a beautiful shot by Nate that hyzers to the right. It's a very good look. He's going to have a nice look down that fairway. Set himself up for a putt for birdie 3. As a Southwest American flight goes over us. Chris Dickerson explains to Drew Gibson the best place to throw it. Not sure this is the ideal time to try something new. Drew Gibson throws it a good 30-40 feet above the tallest trees as it gets ready to crash down. And he has cleared the OB. Andrew Presnell. Opts for the more traditional route. Does not turn in time.
And Andrew has approached inbound. And after kissing off a tree on the left side, and with a very awkward uphill stance, Andrew Presnell has to throw his third shot. A moment ago, we also had seen Nate Perkins throw a forehand, which and Dickerson has done just that. He's laid out to the center of the fairway. And relative to the group, Drew Gibson had the easiest approach. He hits the same. Andrew throws his and Drew's birdie attempt is and same result. Solid Nate Perkins, very impressive for the three. He is proving that he belongs here on this lead card as we are almost to the back half, almost also rounding the halfway point of this tournament. That's some more good math for you, Steve.
We are approaching the halfway, and he will now have a 3-stroke lead on the field with just over 27 holes to play.
And although Gibson by far had the best drive in the group, he's going to simply walk away with a par here. Took a little bit of a risk by taking that route. It paid off. Unfortunately, not getting up and down for the birdie to capitalize. Andrew Presnell will tap in. I believe we're moving on to hole number 9. Stay tuned right here on the Disc Golf Pro Tour from the Idlewild Open. Par 5, and now it's a par 4?
That's 100% right, and it's one of the toughest holes on the course to navigate. You need 3 really good shots to give yourself any kind of look at the 4, which in my mind plays basically as a birdie. You're going to gain a stroke on most people in the field.
And Drew Gibson hits relatively early wood. Nate Perkins off to a great start here today, birdieing 5 of the first 7 holes. Chris Dickerson, only with a slight hiccup on the previous hole, he had birdied 4 out of the first 6, or 4 out of the first 5, I should say, and then took the bogey on the previous hole.
I talked with Chris yesterday, and he said he plays aggressive when the course lets him. Sounds like a pretty smart way to play. Actually sounds like exactly what Josh Anton said at Ledgestone. That is deep in the woods, right? He's He's going to have to pitch out. He's losing a stroke to the field right here on that throw.
As you're looking over the more so than the right. Now Chris's is an extreme and his was very far right. And he has pitched out, and I'm going to go ahead and say, he has to be very careful. He has to not only make sure he turns this over enough, puts it in the right position, doesn't have it fade left or right, and it goes uphill. This is a very demanding shot. And Andrew opts for the roller, however. And it sounds as if he was listening to you. And Drew Gibson puts a great move on that. It does catch a tree. Drew's frustrated. There have been 8 and he looks like he bought a Filet-O-Fish as he put that one right down the center of the fairway. Filleting it. Wow. And for the 3rd consecutive. Dickerson from 60 feet. What else does he do?
He only bragged about the judge and mayor, which seemed pretty significant to me.
And no, we are not pre-releasing any names for upcoming dynamic disc names there.
But Drew Gibson is in jail.
And possibly the shot of the weekend thus far. Oh, and right side. I was.
Yeah, Chris.
Just a few moments, we're going to be moving over to hole 9 as we watch Andrew clean up. Hole 9 aced by Snappy Cole yesterday, 258 feet.
We'll get an update on Snappy. He's been playing pretty hot this round.
Andrew is in, and Nate with the easy cleanup. It's been a long, grueling hole 8. We'll be back with you in a few moments from hole number 9. Great looking forehand by Perkins, fading from left to right off the tee.
1 in 5 players cards the birdie here, Terry. I would expect we'd see at least 1, maybe 2 birdies on this card.
Drew opts for the backhand turnover. Not necessarily heading at the pin, but he'll have a putt from there, from circle's edge.
He's believe he can hit that.
Early right side, that is continuing to roll. Finishes on the left. And Dickerson hits right tree and finishes left. A great forehand flick coming out. Great shot there by Chris Dickerson. Appears to be a good tree hit. Is that what you're saying? And with the exception of Paul McBath, and working hard, although for a par, Chris Dickerson is in and will remain at 4 under. Andrew's in, and looking at the scores, we see Paul McBath has moved up 13 spots into a tie for 3rd. He is 6 under for the round, 5 under overall, and Paul Ulibarri is 5 under overall as well. Nate and Drew are in. We'll be back from hole 10 in just a few moments. Nate Perkins going with a forehand here on this very challenging hole. Yesterday, Jeremy Coling, the sole player in the entire field to take a 2. And that flips up nicely for Drew Gibson. He's going to find himself near the center of the fairway.
That's day 1.
Presnell with a very similar shot, however, hits one of the trees on the right center side.
That looked perfect out of his hand. Just hyzered out just a little bit. Would have been probably circle's edge.
Tree for Dickerson. Let's see how the women attacked hole 10. What a great shot by Chris Dickerson. And a little too much angle there by Presnell. That still will work. I'm guessing he'll be able to convert that putt, but very clean here today. This should be a relatively routine up and down for him. Great looking forehand that finishes right next to the pin. He's going to walk away with a 3, no harm, no foul here.
Left or right, and should be able to go up and down and save the par. And that's what we're seeing today.
Another forehand approach. And Presnell he let one go there. A little bit right, a little bit short.
He really didn't. We saw the same thing happen to I think it was Dickerson and Dickerson and Drew Gibson a couple holes back when they had upshots that they should absolutely put under the pin, and they failed to, and it cost Andrew a stroke. He's actually going to be 1 over par now. And all of those strokes, he's missed 3 putts now that I think he's going to go home and think he should have got those.
A few routine tap-ins here on our 10th hole. Hole 11, very likely ace if you're going to find one anywhere out on the course. That would be the most probable situation there. We're going to move on. Drew Gibson's in. And he hits one of the right center trees that then kicks him to the right side. He looks just outside circle 1, approximately 32 feet, 33 feet, somewhere around there.
If he's inside circle 1, that's going to be one of the most difficult circle 1 putts ever. 10 feet uphill.
This is Drew Gibson going with a backhand. Now, it doesn't have the height to get in, but a birdie may work just the same. Now with Drew's loft putt, that's going to be somewhat awkward positioning for him. The way he putts, he's got to putt uphill, plus he has the grade. Yeah, that may be a little bit more difficult. Yes, it is relatively short, but with his putting style, we'll see how that treats him.
What do you think, Terry? You're going to wager odds with me? I'm going to bet that Drew's going to make that putt.
I'll have to think about that. I know Drew is a solid putter. I just think uphill proves a new challenge. What a shot. Coming in just past the basket.
So, nice shot by Chris Dickerson. He should have a great look at birdie there. We should go ahead and clarify that Jenny said no, but she said, let me tell you when to ask me next. So, it wasn't an entirely negative experience.
Still awkward. Oh, just catching a tree. Let's see how the women performed earlier on hole 11. Just tickling a right side chain. Steve, you mentioned a great birdie here. And also just right. We've seen 2 putts now right of the basket. Drew Gibson will be putting straight at us, uphill. I think he's going to make this, Steve. And high chain, he had to look that in. He second guessed it, but he'll walk away with the birdie. Presnell will be left to clean up. Sounds like you need some of famous Todd's tick and bug removers, what you need, available at the Viper Open. And we're in. Hole 11 complete. We'll see you on hole 12 after a word from our... Also left side for Dickerson. And that appears to be coming in early. We'll see if it gets up and around and finds the opening. And playing for the straight shot all the way to the edge. We'll see how the women performed earlier on hole 12. And from the left side of the fairway, it looks like Chris was giving it everything he had. And trying to split the tree we saw yesterday, Michael Johansson roll it straight through.
But I don't think that was nerves. I think that's just a difficult putt. But it'll be interesting to see if he starts to realize the placement he's put himself in. That was a beautiful shot by Nate. He's staying in the zone.
Chris Dickerson pulling out all his tricks, going with a forehand roller. Also, shortly I'll be able to give you a little bit of an update that's going on over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Some of our sports, we'll say godfathers, grandfathers, and everything in between, ambassadors, all competing for a title. We see that get inside the circle from Drew Gibson.
Now, third shot.
That is rolling right towards the second circle's edge.
Not easy by any stretch, but from this point on, every hole plays over par. So
and what a putt. Glory be to Drew Gibson as he makes a very solid Anheuser.
Bjorn Borg and then Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, and then this kid named Boris Becker just showed up out of nowhere. And if you're just following the Pro Tour for this very exciting opportunity for Nate to make a name for himself right here on the Pro Tour.
Chris Dickerson with a somewhat sped up routine. Very quickly taps in. Andrew will do the same. We'll be back with you in a few moments after a word from our sponsors right here at the Idlewild Open. And he pures the double Mando, and that has a very good line on it. He gives himself a congratulatory clap. Solid shot there by Nate Perkins. And that does turn very early. A spotter is going to chase that down and likely give him a red paddle. He asked for it to get lucky, but I think that's unofficially going to be OB.
It is.
Yes, it is in fact OB. Third to throw will be Chris Dickerson. And although he made the Mando, that hit on the right side and filtered left. Trying to get an indication from our spotter with our pickleball paddle. ProTour pickleball paddle, that is. Trademark pending.
The spotter can't tell. The spotter can't tell if that's in or out.
And Andrew throwing from the drop zone. And Chris has to play to the opening from the spot on the left side of the fairway where he was.
Drew is very aggressive going for the green. It kicks left. He did get over the fairway on the other side of the creek, but he's going to be throwing 5. That is a great run by Chris Dickerson. If it settles down, it looks like it is.
And
I put 5 ahead of the field after this hole. Andrew Presnell puts it under the basket.
Chris cleans up. Nate Perkins continues to remain unfazed as he is just taking a stroll through this very difficult Idlewild course. We'll see if he can maintain that composure as we move through the rest of the course. We'll be back in a moment right here on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And what a shot by Nate Perkins. Beautiful forehand, not hitting a tree.
So if you remember, Terry, the one place you don't want to go here is early right. You want to go through that gap on the left, turn to the right, and you've got another left to right at the end of the hole. Drew hits, bounces right. He's going to be in trouble here on hole 14.
Chris's forehand goes to the left and tries to fight its way back, however it finds a tree. And I'm not sure how that missed the tree, but and A great looking forehand, however, it does hit a tree.
Great shot, Chris.
And he just barely misses all of the trees. Skips up toward the basket. And you mentioned the gap was thin. He does not quite get through it, however. And a simple long jump putt by Presnell.
We'll have to see what the tiebreaker is. I believe James Cole would get the nod and be the fourth man on the lead card.
Okay, well, should be very exciting to see how this unfolds again. Lots of golf to be played in these last 3 or 4 holes, depending on which card you're on, so there's no certainties by any means as we saw yesterday, but definitely looking forward to a great cast for tomorrow.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and say there's a possibility on the next hole that Drew Gibson could get the 3. He'd go to 6 down, and that would put him on the lead card. And the reason I say that is right now we don't feel any wind. It's a 900-foot hole. He could get there in 2 and hit a big putt. He's proven that already.
Some walk over to the, as you said, a very long hole. We'll be back with you in a few moments. And replacement is paramount here on hole number 15's 487-foot uphill par 4. And after getting a little bit of a skip or a scoot, looks like Chris Dickerson is a very good position. We saw this hole give plenty of challenge to our competitors yesterday. Here's Nate Perkins. And Nate just narrowly misses one of the early trees. He hits a later tree, but gets the best possible roll you could ask for. Center fairway. Wow, he caught a break there. Here's Drew Gibson. And Drew Gibson goes with the backhand. Also a good-looking shot, just barely off center. He's going to be really happy with that placement.
I'm going to tell you something, Terry. This is my favorite drive on the course. It challenges guys. You've got one choice, and you've got to commit, and you've got to perform.
And Andrew hits an early tree on the left. Let's see how the women did earlier before we catch up with Andrew on 15.
Good shot.
And he's done just that. Unfortunately, he's carried all the way to the right side of the fairway. He found himself a line, but just a little too much power.
That looks like it was very close to a perfect line. That kicked left.
Of course, I meant his third shot after he teed. And he fights his way out from the right side fairway. Smooth forehand by Dickerson.
Yeah, he's going to have a look at birdie on this.
Nate Perkins is officially going to get off the par and birdie train here. Good looking backhand turnover. Makes this wide to the left. That's what he seems to be lining up. Andrew's turnover puts him within range. Solid putt by Drew Gibson.
Solid putt. A little to the right, but Chris had it dialed in.
And that is right side. We've seen a number of his putts hit the right side, just not quite center enough. That one slips out. Perkins is going to tap in. We're going to move on. Stay tuned. You're watching the Idlewild Open presented by Innova and the Natty Disc Golf Store. And with considerably less wind than we saw out here yesterday, that seems to have gotten a hot skip and carries OB. Looked good out of his hands, however, got a very sharp skip. Drew Gibson, second to tee. And Drew Gibson with a crush here on the 16th hole. He's going to hope that also sits down. We've got a number of spotters. Green pickleball patent pending.
I'm going to go ahead and say Drew has a look at eagle at this point, and that would move him to 6 down and would put him on the lead card again for tomorrow.
Nate Perkins puts his head down after release. He thinks he may have let it go a little early. We'll see if that stops and gets the red paddle.
So there are two things happening right now. James Conrad just birdied hole 16 to go from 7 to 8 down. Nate Perkins just bogeyed hole 15 to go from 11 to 10. His lead is down to 2.
And Andrew going with a very wide hyzer. He needs that to sit. It's also carrying left side OB red. Let's see how the women played hole 16 earlier this morning. Much lower shot here by Nate Perkins. Finds himself inbounds.
Or, as it is, third shot.
And Presnell's going for it all. We'll see if that can carry all the way past. It looks like it could be from up here. Tough to tell. And it sounds as if it's inbounds.
Wow. Chris Dickerson takes the Andrew Presnell route. That is going to sit. And that was a beautiful shot by Chris Dickerson. Great recovery. Here's Drew Gibson's second shot.
And it's a matter of staying clean to get down toward the green. We'll see if he's done just that. Did not hit any trees. He's safe. And the red paddle. Goes just past the basket, rolls on the and it looked like it was going to dial it in. And Gibson, whose putter has saved him a number of times here today. Solid putt by Nate Perkins. And that was right side. That almost wanted to find its way to flop out on the right side. He'll walk away with a birdie. And we're moving on to hole 17. Drew Gibson tees off on 17, rated the third most difficult hole on the course here today.
The average on this hole is over 4 on this par 3 hole.
That has slipped OB in the creek. He gets the red paddle.
Drew's birdie had just put him in a tie for 3rd place. And he's going to have a very difficult par from here.
Next to tee, Chris Dickerson. And the spotter is going to chase that down and give him a red paddle. But he will be inside the circle for a possible par save. Andrew Presnell's disc is flipping up and turning right. The spotter's chasing. And that is also in the creek. OB. And Nate seems to let off a little with the forehand flick. Playing it to the right side seems to be the smart play. Also, though, rolling into the creek OB. Drew remains on the island. And what a putt. Finds the center chains. Great recovery there by Andrew Presnell. And Dickerson also makes good on the opportunity, which is a sigh of relief for him. And Drew low but in. And that's one of the many gorgeous greens found out here at Idlewild. And no pause. We'll be back for hole 18 after a lengthy walk. Stay tuned right here on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And welcome back to hole number 18, which is playing as the third most difficult hole on the course, averaging 4.98. This is considered a par 4, 650 feet. And pewering the gap, just finishing on the left side. He'll take it. Plenty of distance there by Andrew Presnell. And a misfire. Local route, okay. Samuel Henderson and Scott Burnett, the only two to take the birdie 3 here thus far today. And low by Perkins. We're moving on. We'll be back in a moment after the women start hole 18. And you're not watching yesterday's replay. That is Chris Dickerson from... And although it caught some trees on the left side, that's relatively clean. He finishes in a great position. Scott Barnett, the other one, to card the birdie 3. That's going to catch edge and roll to the right. He's got a little more work to do. Hole 18 continues to chew up Chris Dickerson here, both rounds. Nate Perkins wants to maintain a share of the lead. Can he get past the Cedars? Wow. And we find Nate next to the pin. Solid round by Perkins here today. And those Cedars proving every bit of challenge you could imagine. If they're not catching your disc, they're providing a low ceiling. And the conversion by Drew Gibson. Chris Dickerson will tap in. Andrew Presnell, who certainly had his struggles throughout the round today, he'll gently tap in, as will Nate Perkins. We'll see if we can get Nate Perkins to join us in a few moments. But Steve,